This is it. We meet again. I'm somewhat refreshed. I have, if you can tell, I don't know if you can tell, but I have a little bit of a nap hair, bed hair. That's the one thing about my genetic information is that my hair is pretty straight and it's pretty thin, and so when I sleep, I have honestly some of the worst bed hair on the planet. It's kind of annoying. And I kind of washed it, but not really. That's just life. So I took a bit of a walk today at work. I was thinking about some things. I was thinking about how much I enjoyed doing this last night, making the first 2 videos. So I'll be making another one right now, which I'm doing currently. And I definitely know what I want to talk about. I did watch the ones that I made yesterday, and I noticed that the second one was or the first main one was 20 some odd minutes long. It's that's kind of long. I would not get mad at anyone if they didn't want to watch it just because it takes forever. So I'll try to be a little bit more focused, I think, or maybe I'll just talk about those things. So I definitely want to talk about today. I have this hot cocoa stain on my shirt. I was at the office today and well, I spilled. It's not even that funny. I spilled on my shirt and it's that's the worst thing, right? Because as soon as it spills on your shirt, you're especially a white shirt, you're your fate's sealed. It's damn it, I can't do anything about that. But my digress. I have cocoa on my shirt. The thing that I was thinking about a lot today was that I think it's interesting to think about the idea of other species, planetary species, extraterrestrial civilizations. And I'm not necessarily talking about UFOs here on the planet or anything like that. I'm just saying that the universe is really big. There's a lot of things, and it could very well be abundant with life, the universe itself, and many galaxies and solar systems. And I was wondering, because the environments affect evolution quite a bit. If you study anything, if you study any ecosystem on this planet, the environment that you're studying and the inhabitants of that environment that you're studying. I mean, just look at a dam. Just look at how much an ecosystem changes when you have a dam. And if you change the dam, then now you have a brand new lake. The fish that were swimming up and down that river can't do that anymore, and it completely changes the entire ecosystem. And it can potentially alter the entire course of the evolutionary process for whatever is going to come afterwards. And so, if that's true, then that must be true for anything, right? So, I was just thinking, how would we be different as a species if Mars was just as abundant with life as us? That would be kind of cool. What if we saw, if nothing changed except Mars was not a desert, but it was more just maybe a cooler version of our planet, and it had life on it, that would be insane. That would completely alter today. Today would not be like right now at all. As soon as we had photos of Mars and we sent a probe, we'd be off to the races to go and visit it and study it, And what if you turn the tables? What if that planet, what if Mars had developed a species that was intelligent faster than us? They'd be coming over and visiting us millions of years ago. And, and then you can take that a step further. It's okay, well, what about planets, what about civilizations that, were birthed and created in galaxies that were right after the Big Bang? What was it, 14 billion years or so ago is what they say. Whatever that number is, in reality, we have absolutely no idea. But just think about, what if we were, that means that there has to be civilizations that we'll never see, but they are billions of years ahead. And then, what if you had a planet that had many moons? What if we had many moons, or what if another species had many moons around their planets? Instead of just the moon, you'd have to visit all the moons, and that would really advance science. And then And then I was thinking, well, what about the Milky Way, right? Like, so when you go to the desert and you're in the night sky and you see the Milky Way, and you just see this band of stars. Yeah, it looks cool. It's pretty gorgeous. But what if your solar system, what if your planet, what if your star was right over the Milky Way, right? So what if you had this disk? Like, what if this was the Milky Way, and instead of us being in it, what if you were right above it? Like, what if you're right here, and you saw the entire Milky Way, like the entire spiral every night? Like, that would blow the mind. You'd have to go and see that. Like, it would force you to have to try harder and care harder, because there's more to see, there's more to discover. And then, like, what if the opposite is true? Because we know that, galaxies are constantly, the universe as a whole is expanding, but for example, our Milky Way is going to collide with another galaxy many billions of years from now. What's going to do it? And we see galaxies that are currently in a collision course with each other, and we know through computer models that when this collision happens, a lot of these, maybe not a lot, but at least some of these stars in these solar systems, they get flung off into complete deep space, complete blackness. Like what? Oh my God, that would be devastating, right? What about the opposite of that? Like what if you saw the night sky and it was completely black, and it certainly wasn't your fault. It's just your star, your solar system got flung off in this collision of two galaxies coming together, and you were left in the dark. Like what if? Imagine, what if we so much, if not almost everything, about our culture, about the way that our cities are structured, our societies, huge sectors of the government, of the military, of NASA, of academic research, people even related to back many years ago, people would use the stars for guidance to travel. We still do that. They would use it as signs. The Egyptians certainly took it as signs for certain things. And what if you didn't have any of that? Like, just imagine how terrible that would be. They wouldn't know, obviously. They wouldn't know that there was anything else. It was just everything's black and there's nothing. But imagine if everything was just black. You're so far flung out of deep space that the only way to see any kind of star would be with a telescope. But if it was black, why would you even have any clue to make a telescope? I don't know. I guess you'd have some lights in the sky, because you'd have to have a solar system, and there might be a few scant stars. But it certainly wouldn't even be close to the populated amount that we have. What if you just got flung out into deep black space with nothing around to see? That would completely alter the species. And it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be intelligent, but it would certainly change the course of how they interact and think about the world. And so when I think about that, I kind of think back about us. It's like, with that in mind and with that in perspective, it's kind of fun to imagine all the situations with us, but then more importantly is like, well, what does it mean? What do you do about it? Well, I think the important thing to understand from that is that it is kind of humbling. Now, granted, we haven't really, unless the government knows a few things that we don't, hasn't disclosed, but that's a whole nother. I'm not getting into UFOs anytime soon. But let's just assume that the general populace certainly does not have any understanding of an extraterrestrial race. We don't know about life outside of this planet. We're seeking desperately, but we don't know. We have no understanding as a collective species about this. And just imagine how much that affects all of our lives. And imagine just how powerful it is, because that if you think about other species in other areas and the other environments that spur or accelerate the demand or the interest to advance and to colonize other places, or to not, really depends on your environment. And there's so many things that we have absolutely no control over, like zero. But there's so many things about today's world that we live in that none of us have any control over. We do not have control over where our planet is in the galaxy at all. And we are constrained by that. That's in our genetic code. We evolved based on these constraints of our environment. So then, what, and that's really powerful to think that maybe we're not that smart. Maybe we're not that important. And if you look at, my header photo on YouTube at least, and it's a picture of Earth from behind Saturn, and it's just this pale blue dot. And I absolutely love that photo because every time I look at that, it says. It just reminds me to think twice a lot of the times. And I think that's the best a lot of us can do. If anything, is just think twice. And so that's what I was thinking about today. Twice, maybe. And I wanted to share that with you. I did note that in the last video that the camera ended a bit early. Like right when I said, I think this is almost out of tape or whatever, it completely ended. So I will go in a little bit, I got like a few minutes, I'm looking at the clock, I kind of want to be somewhat timely. I had mentioned a behavioral therapist right at the end, and so I have ADHD. And so I work with a behavioral therapist, and mental health is something I would love to go into because it is so important and it is so sad, not just in this country, but I think a lot of people, like mental health is not on the tips of many people's minds, and it's unfortunate because all we are conscious mental creatures. You would think that it would be a precedence to make sure that our own thoughts and our own ideas and existences and the houses, literally, figuratively, of our minds would be kept in clean, healthy order. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Anyways, I have ADHD, and one of the prescriptions for people who have ADHD is to see a therapist, a behavioral therapist that helps manage good habits that help manage and limit the negative downside characteristics of someone with ADHD: inattentive, not sitting still. And so that was actually, anyway, so that's what I do, is about once a month I go and I see a behavioral therapist, and all we do is kind of work on my habits in terms of how I study, how do I organize my work, and how do I manage my time effectively throughout the day so I'm not wasting it, or whatever, and also how do you live well, how do you live a healthy way, like how should one go to sleep in a proper way, how should one express themselves, like, because I do work in an office, and like I talked about, I don't really talk to a lot of people. I'm a programmer. There's no need to talk to a lot of people. And that's not healthy for anyone. It's not healthy to not talk. Because we are a social creature. That's what propelled us forward compared to our ancestors. They didn't quite do that. At least they didn't do it successfully. And so anyways, that's kind of what spurred these sets of videos, and I wanted to share that with you guys because I think it's important. Like one of the things that I learned is that I am ADD, and as you can tell, I kind of rock and move in my chair quite a bit. But to help with that is, I do walk, like I talked about earlier. I do walk every day, at least 1 to 3 times a day. And if I expend some of this jittery energy, then I'm more efficient when I get back to the office or at the desk and I'm doing homework. And I'm able to do my homework better because I've expended some of that restlessness. And that's kind of where, now I didn't talk with the behavioral therapist about doing something like this. But the idea, but he had talked about trying to find avenues of expressing myself through writing or something else, because I told him that a lot of my ADD thoughts that kind of shoot everywhere throughout the day was getting in the way of my work and getting in the way of me working efficiently. And hopefully that's what kind of got me interested. Is it was kind of inefficient to kind of talk to myself or kind of to write privately if I wasn't going to share it. And so that's probably one of the more fundamental things that spurred doing these videos. It's not that it was just inefficient, but it was a way to live healthy. It's a way to express myself. And ideally, someone might find this helpful. That would be amazing. That would be amazing if someone was in a similar situation to me and they can learn from this. Because that's the whole point. We are people, like I talked about earlier. This is just a continuum, and we are all the same being. We're all the same species. We live in separate bodies, but we are one connected organism. Everything is. We are connected to the trees. We're connected to every fish you've ever eaten. We're connected to everything. We all stem from a singular ancestor, and that's really powerful to think about. And we need to take care of this planet. We need to take care of ourselves, and we need to take care of each other, because that's all we have. You know, we're just a pale blue dot, and there isn't a lot. And how we take care of each other and our forms literally are being bipedal for us, and how organisms develop their biomechanics of how they move within their environment it is interesting and somewhat constrained by the geography of the universe. And if you think about the placement of the Earth, because like, what if we had 2 moons? Or 3 moons? How would that affect the tides? How would that affect oceans? I mean, that would completely change in tidal, at least coastal ecologies easily. You know, what if tides were not just a sine wave, or in the form of a sine wave? What if it was sporadic? And what if there were these huge surges that flooded, you know, half the land mass at certain points, because there's all these moons in one area around the Earth at some point. But then there's some other times where the tides plunge several hundreds of feet. I mean, it's possible. It's certainly possible. And you know, what would be different? I don't know. I guess we'll just have to get on a find it. We'll just have to find a planet like that. But that's what I want to talk about today, and I want to give you a little bit more explanation. And this is like I said, just like anything else in life, is a continuum, and these videos will be a continuum. So send me things, send me ideas, send me things to talk about. Ask me questions, and I'll ask you questions. Like I want to learn from this, and I'm really looking forward to meeting along. Thanks.